Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Easter Short Talk, your podcast for all things self-care movies. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. We're glad to have you. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to click like, hit subscribe, and leave a comment below. If you're listening on one of the other podcast platforms, follow, subscribe, and leave a comment or review. It helps us big time. And welcome to anybody on Facebook Live watching us here in real time. This is episode 83. I'm Jay Watson.
And I'm Cathy Castle.
And Cathy and I are going to talk a little bit about stories. And we've had some awesome folks come on here lately and tell their, what we call our self care testimonials, or just talk about their struggles and how they navigate and how they're now using their stories to help serve others. And it just kind of made me think about it. And we've talked about, we had an episode a year or so ago about this a little bit, but it really got me thinking about just how important and impactful our story of struggle and overcoming and how we can use that, how important it can be for someone else who's going through their own struggles for any number of reasons. So I just thought we'd kind of dive into that. So, we're going to talk about stories. We're going to tell stories about stories.
And Jay, Jay is the kind of he's always say this, you're the wizard behind the screen, and your finance, your HR, your tech, right, your content, your marketing, for this whole thing here, which I'm so appreciative of you for doing those tasks. But you're a big storyteller guy, and I believe in that. And I have a lot to say about Kevin Hines, which I have the deepest respect for. Kevin always says storytelling saves lives, and I believe that 100%. But what I didn't realize when I was doing little homework for the episode was one of my favorite things. Guess what? There's neuroscience behind storytelling. And I'm like, yes. So I really am excited to share some of the things that I learned about that. How storytelling not only is a good thing to do, but why is it a good thing to do? What it does, what changes it does in your body is what I'm excited to talk about today.
So it's funny, as usual, once we kind of determine what our episode for the next coming week is going to be, bits and pieces, not 24/7 from that point on, but I'll take bits and pieces of each day, and I'll think about, okay, what am I going to add to this episode? What can I talk about, either just based on opinion or based on life experience? And this kind of light bulb went off for me the other day. I was standing in the shower, as I tend to do a lot of thinking when I'm in the shower, and
the rain washes away and brings.
Well, plus I think I just get kind of so laxed, and I'm kind of in the moment, and it's hot water, and I can, I'm clear headed typically.
And it really can hit your head very well and clear it.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's no
blocking.
It's direct pressure. There's no insulating value up there. Yeah. So it struck me, Cathy, how we all are guilty of wanting to be like everyone else, wanting to fit in. We see someone else's life on TV or on social media, and we want that so bad. We
big time social media, right?
Yeah, we want to do what they're doing. We want to fit in and be like someone else that we think is happy or think is successful. Mm-hmm. But yet, the very thing that we all inherently share, which is struggle. We all have struggled. We all will struggle. It's something that automatically we have in common. We don't, for the most part, as in general, as a society, we tend to not want anything to do with coming together with that. In other words, we're afraid to share what might make us like someone else, but yet we'll do all these other things, whether it's buying a car or buying a house or wearing clothes or whatever, to be like the other person. But yet we won't be vulnerable when that's the thing that automatically binds us together.
Because we're afraid of what people will think. I mean, people can say they're not afraid. I don't care what people think. But I think down deep, most of us really do care what people think. Don't you agree?
I do, and I think it matters who those people are. Like I think our close circle, we really care what those people think. Maybe people that are, whether it's coworkers or people that are we're friendly with, but we're not necessarily close to. We probably worry less about what those folks think, and maybe even less about what perfect strangers think. Although there are certainly a lot of people like online that care about what perfect strangers think, also. But yes, but I think it's to varying degrees depending on who the person is.
Well, and our brains are so wired negatively like that that we're, even if somebody wasn't going to think that way, we're already we've already told ourselves that's the story. That if I say to Jay, I don't like pizza, then you might say, what the heck's wrong with you? And then I may interpret that as, oh,
Judgment.
something's wrong with me. There's
Yeah.
judgment, right? Although I do like pizza.
Well, here's the thing, and look, I believe me, if anybody can understand
Yeah.
being afraid of being judged for telling the truth, it's me. It was 40 plus years for me. It literally took me 45 years to say the words out loud that I'd been sexually abused as a child.
Well, but
45 years. So I get it.
there's different things. Like,
Yes.
your continuum, your what you're talking about is your trauma. You have a trauma that you processed and shared.
Right.
But not people may have different degrees of trauma. Maybe they
Yes.
experienced a loss of a loved one, or
Or a health scare
yeah.
yeah.
But then there's other stories. I was thinking about that in my shower. I was thinking of stories too. Like, we all have certain aspects of us. I mean, that's how we're here. That's how we're at the age of whatever we are, is the story that made us, right? And I was thinking to myself, I used to be, maybe embarrassed is the word, and I almost feel guilty for saying this, but my parents had me very young. My mom was 16, pregnant at
Yeah.
15. They were young, obviously, and didn't have two nickels to rub together at that time. And I was always very embarrassed by it. I didn't want to tell that story.
Yeah.
And when people would see my parents, they're like, "What? How old are they?" And I would not tell the truth. There were years where I'm like, they're whatever age.
They're just little
But
young. Yeah.
but as I've aged and I've told that story, and I'm proud of where it came from.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say I came from a mansion. I didn't.
Right.
I'm still not in a mansion,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter. But it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah. I can relate to that, Kathy, because my mom was a single mom. She
Yeah,
was 16 when I was born. My father was in jail when I was
that's right.
born.
I forgot about that.
I mean, look, I mean,
But you don't walk around saying, "Oh, hey, this is me and all these things."
yeah. And look, as you and I've talked about, man, I faked it till I could make it. And
You were the best
I
baker
would
ever,
I'd put on a show, and I'd try to trick everybody because
and you were
I
funny.
thought, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think I am funny, but was I was I was really exaggerating because
Yeah.
I didn't want anybody to see the real me. I wanted to. It was like a magician. Hey, no, look over here. Don't look at what I'm really doing under the table. Look over here. That was
Yeah.
me for the longest time. But I think it's. I tell people all the time when I have people in private conversations asking me about, they'll say, I have the desire to want to tell my story and help others, but I'm afraid. Or how do you know how to go about it? And I tell people this: it has
Hmm.
to be the right time, the right place, and the right person. Um, and you kind of have to. Mine was by accident, so it was. I literally just like spur of the moment. It was very. But anyway, um, but I think as far as the right time portion of that is, you have to be you have to be far enough along in your healing journey to not be so worried about what that person or the group of people are going to think about when you share your story. But you can control that by whom you choose to tell. You're
Yeah.
probably going to choose someone that you really trust and who you really think is not going to judge you as kind of your test subject.
Well, I
Okay.
was when you say this, Jay, like when you started talking about sharing your story,
Yeah.
right? And obviously you've done that very publicly.
Right.
Um, I think I kind of assumed when people talked about telling stories that it had to be public because everybody that I was sort of tuning into about telling their stories and helping others were very public. But I had to
Right.
really process that and think it doesn't have to be so public, right?
It wasn't public initially. Yeah.
Which not so telling your I have come to believe that telling whatever your story is healing.
Yes.
And we can get into that later. But it does not have to be a public display of whatever. It is just telling the ugliness to somebody
Right.
that you feel you trust in that moment to tell. And
It
that's what you did.
it probably shouldn't be public the first time you say the words out loud.
I
I
just
mean, to be
wanted to
honest,
say
yeah.
that.
Mine was
I didn't want that to keep somebody from telling their story by
yes.
thinking it has to be public. I have to get on our podcast.
Well, no.
I have to
Well,
tell the universe. You don't have to tell the universe.
put it this way: the first time I said the words out loud about what happened to me, I was 45. Now I'm 58. So there's a 13-year difference between the first time and now sharing it on the podcast publicly.
Wow.
Think about that.
That's a
So
long time,
it's a
Jay.
process, and there were steps in between, and there was probably, there was the first time, and then there was probably years between the next time I told someone, and um, just because of how the context of the conversation was going with the person I ended up telling for the first time, I knew it was a safe space. I just knew. So that kind of eliminated the judgment part of things for me, or at least my that was true. I was not judged whatsoever. So
Right.
it was as far as first times telling some stuff that you find are the ugly parts of you. It probably went about as good as it could have gone for me because it came out spur of the moment. It wasn't planned. I didn't get time to be anxious about
Wow.
saying it. It just literally fell out of my mouth because it just felt right in the moment. So, but here's you know there's several things that I've kind of learned and really love about what we do with Eastern Shore Talk. And one of the big things is, and I first started experiencing it when we were doing the in-person groups, how impactful and how important your message can be to let someone else who's not as far along in their journey know that they aren't alone and that it's okay. You're not any lesser for having gone through whatever you've gone through. That tons and tons of other people, if they haven't gone through the exact same experience, have gone through similar or are familiar with struggle in general. Um, so, that whole aspect of being vulnerable on a podcast, Cathy, and having it be an example to people that they aren't alone, I take that very seriously because it's that saying where they say, "Be what you didn't have when you were struggling." So I didn't have a someone that I could trust to talk to, and I didn't have an example, and I didn't I felt alone. I was going through the world in every aspect alone. So if we're able to, by being vulnerable and telling whether it's the guests that come on or you or I talking about things that aren't the most pleasant things for us to talk about in our personal lives, and someone can say, "Oh, I've been through that," or "I understand that," or I can resonate with that, and they don't feel alone for that little bit of time. That's huge.
Let me read you this. You're talking about feeling alone, and we're telling people you're not alone, but this comes from a Psychology Today article, and it says so many people leave their stories untold, their songs unsung. And when this happens, we find ourselves feeling lonely, listless, out of touch with our life's purpose, plagued with chronic sense that something is out of alignment, and we may even end up feeling unworthy, unloved, or sick. That's a pretty strong statement,
Yeah,
right? So just what you said, it's kind of obvious. Maybe people will feel lonely, or that they're the only one experiencing that. Nobody can understand you, where you're going through, but it leaves you in this really separated category by not by holding it in.
I can tell you, Kathy, on the flip side, on the positive side of that, my experience has been I have felt more accepted and embraced through the community of the folks that we've talked to on the podcast who have struggled with whatever, other folks who I've talked to privately that have struggled with sexual abuse in their lives. I have felt more welcomed, comforted, and embraced and accepted in that community than I've ever felt anywhere else in my entire life. Now, that's partly I'm partly to blame for that because I didn't allow people to get
Right.
to know me and
Well,
accept me.
but
I
that was
was
protective. That was your
yes,
protective.
I was part of the reason why I wasn't accepted because I didn't give the people the chance to accept me. There probably would have been folks that would have if I had given them the opportunity. However, it's been nothing but a warm, connective, positive um, learning experience for me to not only share my story but to hear other stories and you know
Here,
everybody's kind of road and how they navigate and go through what they're going through is going to vary, not just because the circumstances are different, because you know we view things differently just inherently as human beings. So you can always, or at least I've learned things about how to, like with Colin um, Potts
yeah.
that we had on that was at the expo. I mean,
What a good
come
story.
on! If you don't listen to him talk and
If you don't, I
just
know if you're not moved by him.
feel some kind of way and just
Yeah,
feel
100%.
inspired and empathetic and just
Hmm.
connected, then you're the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz, and you need to have the wizard give you a heart. Um,
That's so true.
yeah,
Look, this I thought this was interesting, Jay. I read this. So when you share your story, and this kind of is relates to the podcast. So you share your story, or one of our guests comes on and share their story. Here's the possibility that you create. Ready? That others can hear a part of themselves in your words. I
yep,
thought that was so powerful
yep,
because maybe somebody's not comfortable. They're not there. They're not ready to tell anybody what happened. They're still in that negative loop of worrying about other people and what they think of them. But you tell your story, Colin tell his story, whoever tells their story, they hear part of themselves in what you said. So then they can relate, and then boom, they don't feel alone. And then guess what? They might even find hope.
yeah.
So
Or they'll think to themselves, "Oh, that's exactly what I would say if I was telling my story." Yeah.
so what wow, what a gift to help somebody else by
Oh,
telling the
there.
story.
To me, there is no greater calling. If you can serve others in some way, shape, or form, that's kind of why we're here, I think. And to me, I think our story is the tool in the toolbox for doing that because it builds connection and trust. If you are giving you're being vulnerable and you're talking about what most others would you perceive as not wonderful information, and someone is listening, they're like, "Oh, you know that like me with my first experience, I knew that that person was not going to judge me. They built trust because of what they had shared with me right off the bat. So,
Right.
like I was in, and they connected with me immediately.
That opened a door where you
Yes.
felt comfortable.
So yep. Um, and it's just, and what does oh gosh, what's his name?
Jay, I'm not a mind reader yet.
Was it Cambridge? Did the talk in
Oh,
Cambridge?
Kevin Hines.
Kevin Hines. What's he say? A pain shared is a pain halved.
Yeah, that
I
is
mean,
very
it's just, and it sounds simplistic, but it really,
takes the pain away.
you,
It's
you're kind of relieving the pressure, and you know, you're
Well, this says there's another thing I read that says when you share your experiences, your whatever you want to call it. If you don't want to call it a story, you want to call it your experience, whatever it is. Um, it does provide a sense of relief. You're releasing some of the pressure, like you just said, and it helps you make sense of your own emotions, right? And I do want to get into a little bit of more of this when you're ready to get into it, but it also calms your nervous system by letting. Think of a pressure cooker, right?
yep,
It's and then you let a little out. That's what talking's doing.
yep.
Talking is saving lives. It's taking the pressure off, which then addresses the whole physical part of your body.
I think most folks, well, everyone has struggled or is struggling. Everybody who's listening to this podcast right now has someone in their life that they know that is struggling right now, and probably someone that's struggling that you don't even know is struggling.
Well, and I was thinking too as you're talking, there's stories or experiences that people are comfortable telling. Like, think about it. If somebody has like a serious condition like diabetes, I have a child that has diabetes. Well, maybe there's somebody else that has diabetes that's comfortable sharing their experience, but that becomes a little bit acceptable. That's, there's some things that are more in the acceptable zone. But then there's things like that you had experienced with the childhood sexual trauma. Not everybody's there. They're not ready to talk
Right.
about it. So you
Yeah.
have done such great, amazing work with that. But, there's different levels of it. So it's just fine. And you and I have had people tell stories without, they don't, it's not like you just expose every of your skeletons.
Yep.
They've told what they're comfortable publicly.
Yep.
But maybe there's somebody else that a friend, a family member, a stranger, a pastor, whatever, that they have just dumped it.
And I
A
would say
whole ugly story.
I would say this, Kathy. If you're someone who you're at a point where obviously you recognize that you have struggled or are struggling, and you're just kind of searching for something to kind of help with the healing, um, look up. Let's just say you've been had experience with sexual abuse like I have. Um, you can find podcasts or articles or someone's maybe speaking locally about it or whatever, and go watch or listen or experience that, and think about how it makes you feel having that person tell their story that you relate to, um, and think about, you know and learn and see how they present themselves, and
And I
um,
think we have to remember as friends, like I'm a friend of you, how we're here, that we're honestly listening,
yeah,
that we're showing, we're giving you attention and empathy. Like when I know where you were and where I was when you shared your story with me. And,
yep,
um, I don't know how you felt when you did that, but like, I know that I thought nothing different of you. I probably even felt closer to you at that point
right.
because, you trusted me to share that. But it's not, I was like, oh, that guy.
Honestly, Kathy, I remember it was in your house because I was measuring for carpet at your house,
Mhm.
and I didn't really, I wasn't, I don't, I don't get nervous and I don't worry about who I tell. I mean, I don't. I mean, obviously, I've got a public podcast, so it is public in that regard. But I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't socially like. You know what I mean? I don't. That would be weird for anybody to do. But I don't. It's going to sound strange when I say this. I don't care that people know because I'm not. I'm not those events, and I'm not. I don't identify with that anymore. So I don't.
But
You
there's
know,
people, I've had
that's a
people.
then, and I can tell you honestly, I've never had any indications from anyone that I've told that look like Judgment Tea. Nobody has, not, at least not to my face, anyway.
Well,
Um, and
I've been.
I'm just at a point where I just don't. What I'm trying to do is way more important than what those stupid people judge me is going to be. I don't care
I've
about that.
had people come to me about, I do like to try to be helpful in the suicide education and prevention space. And I've had people say to me, hey, I just wanted to share with you that I lost my brother 10 years ago. And this was really hard on my family and whatever the rest of the story was. And I'm like, I had no idea. And that particular person I'm thinking of said, yeah, it's just, those are heavy burdens. It's not something that you carry around with you. Like, hey, I'm Cathy, and these are the three things you need to know about me. Oh, I
Right.
had a
Yeah.
major event happen, and I work in this, and I drive a Honda. It's just,
Yeah.
when do you say that? Or who do you disclose that to? So I think it's just complicated for people, the comfort level. And
Yeah. Start with one.
yeah, start with one is good.
Yep. And whether that's your therapist or a close friend, a family member, whoever. Number
Yeah,
one, if you're choosing, again, like I said earlier, if you're choosing them, you trust them enough to not pass judgment and to be a safe place and to stand beside you as you talk. And not that they're going to fix anything, because that's their, not only is it not their job, it's not, they're not able to. So, um, but yeah, I think being receptive, being presenting yourself as a safe space for those people in your life. Just whether it can be little minor things, or whatever. Maybe they're just having a bad day at work, or whether they've gone through a significant event, whatever it is. And, you know, just be a good person. Just be a safe space, and
yeah.
you know, you don't have to provide a solution or have an answer. Sometimes it's just a matter of that person just needs to say the words out loud and just get rid of that pressure in that moment. Um, they don't expect for you to fix anything. It's just it's a it's a very intimate thing. It's vulnerable, but it's, man, it's so impactful. It's so, because we as different as we all are and are supposed to be in so many ways. That's one of the things that we all have so in common, is that we go through it, whatever it is. It's just, life's hard.
Life is hard.
Um, and, sometimes we go through things that are just bad luck. It's just kind of life. Then there are things that other people cast upon us. And those are different categories. And, not that one's easy and one's not easy, because there's difficulties in both. But, you know, it's just, and speaking specifically about what I'll call my category, just the sexual abuse category, is so common in this country. 1 in 3 females and 1 in 6 males will be sexually abused at some point in their lives, and that's just based on the cases that have been talked about, and that are public or whatever. So
It's true.
it's just,
Well, let me read this. This talks about the healing power of storytelling when it comes to processing trauma. This says sharing a traumatic experience by weaving it into a coherent narrative can help individuals process the event and make sense of it. The process moves the experience from a disorganized, chaotic memory to a more manageable story, leading to reduced anxiety.
as I've gone along, Kathy, and I've gotten more and more experience in how I present my story. Before it was just, let me get this information out. Well, now it's like, okay, I'm speaking to, based on my experience. I'm hopefully speaking to specifically with my situation. I want to speak to the feelings of that other person that might be listening, and I'll say, when this happened to me, I felt X, Y, and Z. This is how it made me feel. It affected my life moving forward. X, Y, and Z. And I'll give you one example. Like, I don't know that I've ever talked to you specifically about this, specific issue, but I've certainly talked about it before, is that, you know, the PTSD of it for me in a mild form was every time I would be in a relationship and it came time to be intimate, my mind would always go to, would always be back at the moments I was being sexually abused as a child. In this, not the actual moments, but in a general sense of, is this person doing this for selfish reasons? Because those people did whatever they did to me when I was 6 years old for wrong, unhealthy, selfish reasons. And there's many other adjectives I could use, but for the purpose of how I would present it, I would, my mind would always go back there, and I had sexual anxiety. Like when those intimate moments came, my mind was there in a, this
Sure.
person's doing this for I'm not, they're using me, or it's just for their purpose, and it's not a partnership, and da 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 da, like every single time. So
Yeah.
it's just, it's, you know, every kind of topic has its own kind of,
Thing.
yeah, you know, PTSD is such a like before I had talked to a therapist about it. I'd always thought of PTSD like specifically with soldiers on a battlefield, and how like the
Right.
soldiers coming back from Vietnam.
That's how we.
That's how I equated PTSD,
That's how our
and
body.
that's true.
Yeah.
Or maybe now first responders, or
Yeah.
things like that. I never had equated it to a quote unquote you know general traumatic event for
Trauma.
any.
It's
Yeah,
more than critical incidents. It's also traumatic events.
yeah. Um, so yeah, it's things like that where that's where the kind of the connection comes, because I'm sure, having just said that, someone out there, because of the statistics, there are probably people that are watching or listening that have had similar experiences that I do, and they're probably thinking, "Oh yeah, I feel the same way when it comes to those moments for me." And
Yeah.
that's how we kind of can really start connecting with folks. And in this case, it's from like experiences, but it can just be general struggle. And there are, like Kathy and I, pound the self care thing just as this big giant tool for not only helping us get through struggles, but to help build our self, kind of like our immune system, build it up prior to these things happening to us, so we feel so strong about ourselves that we're a little bit better equipped to deal with stuff that comes along in life, because it's just around the corner for all of us. We can't avoid it. It's
So, can I talk a little bit about the physical things that it does for the body?
yes,
Storytelling.
yep,
Um. So this really surprised me. I'm not gonna lie. This research that I did on this. So I'm gonna start by saying this. And I'm reading right now, obviously. Every time you tell your story and someone else bears witness to it, this kind of was the surprising thing to me. Maybe it shouldn't have been. So every time you tell the story, I'm going to tell you a story, Jay, and you're listening to me. It turns off the body's stress responses. I didn't know that. I guess I really didn't know that.
gets rid of cortisol.
Flipping off toxic stress hormones like cortisol, which we do need cortisol. I'll talk about that in a minute. Just you don't need too much cortisol. So it turns off our body's stress response, like when we're getting too much cortisol and epinephrine, and it flips off.
It gives
Flipping
it
it
a middle
off.
finger.
Wow, that was a Freudian slip. Anyway,
So to speak, flips it off.
yeah, we're so professional here. So it's flipping the toxic stress. Oh my god, I gotta get back here. Let me get back focused. Okay, it's flipping the toxic hormone
Which,
down, but it's also flipping your relaxation response and releasing healing hormones. So we're knocking down the cortisol and the epinephrine, and we're bringing in the healing hormones like oxytocin, dopamine. endorphins, and I'm going to come back to that. So not only does this turn on the body's innate self-repair mechanisms, I love that. Like our body has ability to self-repair, um, and function as preventative medicine, just like we would do if we were sick. So this is where self-care is like medicine, but it also relaxes our nervous system, helps us heal our mind of things like depression, anxiety, fear, anger, and feelings of disconnection. So that's just an overall.
Yep. In layman's terms, think about it like this: when you tell your story in a safe space, and you feel empathy, you feel accepted, you feel not judged, you feel loved by the person or people that you've told, you feel good. Kathy's just told you why. All the chemicals that.
But I want to talk about the chemicals. Can I be
Yeah,
nerdy? Let me just be nerdy.
sure. Yeah, because it matters. Yeah.
I can't help it. So, storytelling affects our hormones. And if we think about this, and I told you we could probably have a whole nother podcast on it, that's why movies are good for us. Because we can release some good hormones, connect
Yep.
with people. Anyway, I'm going to get off of that for a minute. So, when we're telling stories, our brain and body experience several physiological changes. Wouldn't have really guessed that. I really wouldn't have guessed that. Maybe you would have. And there's four things that happen. It's oxytocin, cortisol, dopamine, and endorphins. So, to me, oxytocin is the most exciting one. So, if we're telling our story, a compelling story, then oxytocin is released when we feel empathy and connection to others. A good story that like movies, features relatable characters often causes this release, helping us build trust, social bonds. There's even been studies of children in hospitals when stories were told to them, they had a much larger increase in oxytocin than doing other things that would raise oxytocin. So oxytocin helps our emotional response, our stress regulation, and it helps us decrease some of the cortisol. So, ways to increase oxytocin normally, raise it, right? Massage, touch, hugging, yoga, culling pets, meditation, rest, being kind, essential oils like lavender, magnesium rich foods. Those are all other ways that you can increase oxytocin, but oxytocin is something we need. It's good for us. So telling the story affects oxytocin. Now, cortisol is a little strange, right? We need cortisol. And
To protect
sometimes
us.
I joke around here and say I'm holding the cortisol hose, right? It's just flooding in my body. But we actually need cortisol. Um, but the
It's part of the
boost in
fight or flight, isn't it, Kathy?
it it is part of it. It calms us down from the fight or flight, and it can be an immune boost. It can help with our regulate our metabolism, our blood pressure, our glucose. I mean, it does a lot of functions. You have to have cortisol, because I've heard people that had cancer treatments and their body wasn't producing cortisol anymore, and they need to take a
Right.
steroid to make those functions still happen. But anyway, telling story telling stories give you a temporary rise, a bump in the cortisol. And then once the story starts to resolve itself, like you may tell, when you're telling your story, cortisol may increase in your body, but as it's getting resolved, as there's a good ending to this story, then it starts to relieve. That cortisol starts to pressure out, right? And that's the calming. That's the calming part. We
Yeah.
want that. Now we don't want too much cortisol. We don't want too little cortisol. But so cortisol is a little complicated. But if you're
Yeah.
storytelling, it can give you a quick, really, rise in that. Another thing is dopamine, and you guys probably hear some of these in medications. But that's kind of the reward system in your brain. And when you tell a story, you are increasing dopamine. Some people get that in medication because, low dopamine, people that have depression or bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, a lot of times will have low dopamine, and they'll counter that with some medication. But telling story is like medication. it can help increase the dopamine. And there's a lot of things dopamine does with motivating us, helping with our attention. And another thing is endorphins. Telling or hearing funny stories can release endorphins. So I'm not saying, Jay, if you're telling your story about what has happened to you, that's funny.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
that, but I'm saying just storytelling in general,
Yeah.
because there's a wide range of different kind of stories. But anyway, and through endorphins, people say they get a runner's high. Laughing can create endorphins. Dark chocolate, thank God. I'm so happy about that. I'm justified. Meditation, yoga. Um, anyway, so I just had to tell the nerdy thing. I'm sorry. So I didn't realize that all these chemical reactions happen in your body by hearing stories, connecting with stories, telling your story, which makes sense that if you go to a movie, you go see Titanic and you might end up crying, that's your body responding, but it's a good thing.
Yeah.
A good cry at a movie is a good thing.
I tell you, as you were talking about all that, Kathy, I've probably there was probably a different hormone release for me initially. Like it was like when I first got it off my chest, it was like a big sigh, like like the pressure was
Maybe
going. But
even
now,
exhausting.
now it's more like there's a release of good hormones and a satisfaction that I'm being of use to someone else. So it's probably
It's the oxytocin.
yeah, it's. I mean, it might be the same
It's
hormone, but it's
connection because
yeah,
you're having empathy for others. You're
yeah,
connecting, and that's a good feeling,
yeah.
right?
You know,
That
yeah,
is
yeah.
totally that.
It's a sense of purpose, and we all want a sense of
Yes.
purpose. Um, it's and again, for someone who spent most of their life isolating, it's just I found so much value in you know connecting with folks over struggles. Then that sounds kind of weird, but again, we all struggle. So it's not
Well, and how about the term "misery loves company"? I've
yeah. Well,
I
that
you could argue that point, but it kind of does. Not that you both need to be miserable, but if I say something happened to me and you say, "Man, that happened to me and this is what I did," then I feel better because I'm not by myself.
it's
You understand.
relatable. I would use that word because the misery love company. When I think about that, Kathy, is there are folks that just live a miserable life and they can't stand to see other people happy, so they thrust their
Right. That's true.
unhappiness on other people.
Yes.
So yeah, that's
Yeah,
a little bit
don't
of a
don't use
sticky.
it in that way. Use it in
But
the other
I know
way.
what you're getting at. Yeah, it's the you relate and
Yeah.
you connect when, especially when your story is so much. When you feel your story is very similar to someone else's. You're just like, oh, there's just a moment like your heart will start racing in a good way, and you're just like, you kind of, we had some in-person sessions early on before we started the podcast, and I could see folks' body language change when someone would share a story. They would go from, kind of being down with their head, and they would perk up and listen a little bit closer and just feel more involved in the conversation. It's just so, for as many things that are going on negative in this world and how there's just so much, you know, people not being good people and not doing the right thing, it's scary. It took me 45 years to say the word. So I get it. Um, but
But
I,
I
I'm
think
telling you, you know, if you're someone who's kind of, you've, again, you kind of have to be at a certain point in your healing journey to be ready,
yeah.
be willing, to at least want to find a way to say your words or to use. There's a difference between someone who has, like, I'll use Leah Wilkins, who came on our podcast as an example,
Right.
who had been to therapy and talked to her therapist. She had told her story to a professional. Well, then she comes to me and says, I'm ready to use to tell my story. there's steps. And again, her therapist was that one, or maybe it was a
Sure.
family member, who, whatever. Start with one, and then
And how about, wouldn't you say, Jay, um, find somebody to tell your story to, and but I would think using some of the other tools of self-care at the same time is probably helpful too. Like over and over again we hear the same things, but you also have to sleep. Like you also have to put some good food in your body. You also breathe, just breathe. How many people do we say, I had to breathe? I had to remind myself to breathe. Deep breathing. Go outside in nature. Go exercise at wherever you exercise. Um, you gotta have all those things in the secret sauce.
the self care things, Kathy, are if you're working on that part, those are the things that are gonna get you to the point where you're ready, willing, and able to tell your story, whether it's for the first time, whether it's publicly, whatever it is. Working on yourself is gonna give you the strong enough sense of self to not be as afraid to tell it in a more public setting. If you're to that point,
And don't you think the better you get at this kind of stuff, the more you understand your body? Like,
yes,
I'll give you a stupid
the
example.
better you get, the better you get.
I was having some pressure in the back of my head, um, and I almost felt like it was like maybe some kind of a headache, a tension kind of thing, but it almost felt fluid. Like I don't know, but I have this.
Like you get a crick in your neck, like you feel like you got to like twist your neck to like pop your neck.
So I
Yeah,
have these, and I think some of that's that vagus nerve too. Like I'll do weird things where then I'll put my head like this, and then I'll put my head like this, and then I'll pull it this way, this way. Of course, if you're listening to this, you don't know
I
what.
get it because I sleep funny. Yeah,
But and then I have this thing that I put behind my neck that I lay on the floor, and it just relieves pressure. But when you learn your body and what the pain is, and healing is more than just a pill, I guess is what I'm saying too,
yeah. And
or
we've
one
talked about
solution.
it. We've talked about it a million times. When we hold anxiety and stress
Mhm.
in our minds, we're actually holding it in our bodies.
Yeah.
Um, so telling your story, yes, it's going to ease that mental cloud, and it's going to release these hormones, and that's all great. But it's also going to, you know, you're going to start sleeping better, and you're going to, your blood pressure might lower, and all these things.
Yeah.
Our body is so sensitive to stress in our life, our physical body, not just the mental part of the brain itself, but our entire physical body is impacted so much. So, you know,
Right.
just think about it this way: you walk in, you decided you've been going to a therapist, and you're going to tell your therapist you're going to give the tea, and you walk into the office, and you spill the tea, and you walk out, and you're like, oh, you probably feel lighter just in that moment, that day. Just imagine now, extrapolate that over a month or a year or whatever, and then you're going to your therapist regularly, and maybe you find another person in your life, another. So now you've told two people, and like what's that hair commercial
Oh
back in
yeah,
the day?
and so on
So
and
on
so
and so
on.
on. Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's and
We remember the jingle, we just don't remember the brand.
yeah, it was a L'Oreal. So, I don't know what it was. It was a women's hair product of some kind.
And then there was all these people.
Yeah.
You make me want to look that up.
And then before you know it, 13 years later, you're on a podcast talking to thousands of people, talking about it like it's the weather. And I'm not trying to make light or be flip
Right?
about it. It just,
Is that comfortable?
it's just, it's literally, I don't have a negative feeling about talking about it at all anymore. But it took 13 years to get to that point. So,
But have you've gotten courage from it, and you've given yourself compassion, and you tell your story. It's your narrative. It's nobody else's. Nobody else telling it for you.
but getting back to the faith from last week, the faith is the biggest reason why I'm able to do that because I realize I'm a child of God. I'm not worried about what people, especially at this point. Every time, from the first time till the 100th time, each time got a little bit easier and a little bit more
Yeah.
comfortable, and it just does. That's just like with anything that you practice enough. If you do anything over and over and over, you get better, you get more comfortable. I've said it so much now that it's just kind of like people are probably tuning in and being like, "Oh, Jay's talking about his past again." So I do feel guilty from that standpoint. Like, I don't want it to be about Jay. I want it to be about sharing stories and the general aspect of that. Not, it would be great if there was a world where I didn't need to have to tell my story because no one was in need of hearing my story. That would be great. Um, so I get that's my only worry is that people get bored of hearing me talk about it from time to time. That's my only worry.
Right.
But I think it's important to be receptive and if someone comes to you and says, Kathy, I'm really now you're different because you're a mental health professional, so you're probably a bad example from this standpoint. But
Right.
somebody comes to me and says, Jay, you know, I'm really going through something. Can I talk to you? It's important for me, not just because of what I've gone through, but just as a decent human being, to provide a safe, judgment-free zone for them to be able to talk to me and just listen. And
Make eye contact.
yeah, be present.
Be present.
And if I'm going to ask a question, just ask, is what can I do? Is there something that I can do? And they'll
Yeah.
tell you. They
That
might say, no, I just needed to get off my chest. And if that was my purpose, great.
what can I
Now,
do or how can I be helpful to you? What do you
yes,
need? All
yep,
those kind of lines.
yep,
Um, is not grilling people for information. It's like, I'm
yep.
here. What do you need? And
It's
sometimes a good old fashioned hug.
yep. And it's not necessarily, especially if it's the first time. It's not appropriate for me to turn it around and make it about me and say, oh, well, yeah, I understand this because of X, Y, and Z.
Don't top the story, right? When you're
No.
listening to someone.
Now, if this person and I have several conversations and it becomes deeper, then there will be a time where I can put some more information about my experiences into that. But again, right time, right place, right person. Um, and we all have to kind of figure those out for ourselves. Um, and I'm going to just put it out there. If there's anyone who's at that point where they feel like they're willing and able and ready to be a little bit more public with their story, contact me on Facebook, Instagram, wherever, easternshorttalk at gmail.com. Shoot me an email. We can talk.
Well, I would think it
Um,
would be fair to say, wouldn't I would do this, and I'm sure you would too. And if somebody's not ready to be public like that, and they just need somebody to hear them, you or I, both of us would be willing to just listen to
yep,
somebody and to be a friend.
yep. Or if they just maybe heard something that one of us said that just really hit home to them and they just wanted to like discuss that and say, I really appreciate you talking about X, Y, and Z. I really related because of this. And that's all they needed to say.
Yeah.
Great. That's a step. Um, all those kind of little things matter, you know.
Yes, and everybody matters. That's a whole thing.
Yes.
Everybody does matter.
And you're not lesser, you're not a weirdo, you're not anything any different than anybody else if you've gone through something or if you're currently going through something because
Well,
I'm here to tell you every person that's ever walked on this planet except for one
yeah.
has, and even he went through it, really, if you think about it. So, you know,
I like what our friend said last week. Sarah, right? Sarah was
this
our
this is our this is the first time this is the first time doing it for all of us.
She said, yeah, she said life, we're doing the best, kind of like we're doing the best we
Yep,
can because this is our first time doing it. And I'm
yep,
like, for such a young person, she really is an old soul. But
yeah,
yeah, it's all of our first time doing this life, doing this age, doing today.
yeah.
We're trying.
And again, I've
Give
said this
yourself
many
credit.
times. We can get through this thing called life so much easier together than we can alone. And that's coming from the biggest loner that there ever was, this side of the Pecos River. Um,
To what river? he, well,
that
you
sounds like a cartoon. I think that was like a Bugs Bunny
took that
cartoon or
from,
something.
yeah. You thawed out on the Pecos River.
the fictional dried up Pecos River. that's where the Road Runner and the Coyote hung
Was
out.
chasing you with a mallet.
That's where the Acme company was after me.
That's great. That's great.
All right, so before we get out of here, what's let's do a little music or movie trivia.
Okay.
So, Kathy, what's your
Ready?
trivia question?
Movies. All right, ready?
Yep.
According to IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, right? IMDb. What was the highest grossing movie worldwide of the 1980s? So the question
Ooh,
again, according to IMDb, what
yep.
was the highest grossing movie worldwide of the 1980s? That decade.
Um,
Since we love that decade.
yeah, I'm going to take an educated guess. Oh, now I keep wanting to talk myself out of it though. There's a couple that I have in mind, but I'm going to guess Back to the Future.
E.T.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that. That's not what I would have
My other
guessed.
one was Indiana Jones. Was my other thought.
I don't have
Huh.
the rest of them up, but and here's
And
something I
I could believe that because that was gigantic. It was
yeah, yeah I
that
love
was that was Drew Barrymore's kind of coming out party.
my brother's really scared of ET, so anytime I can terrorize him, I buy him socks that are ET. I send him memes that are ET. Anyway, did you know that the IMDb system is owned by Amazon?
I did not know that, but everything's owned by Amazon, so it doesn't
Yeah,
really surprise
that's
me.
true.
Amazon bought MGM Studios, so now I
Didn't
mean,
know that.
yeah.
Anyway, all right, go yours.
So mine is music, and we're going to go back to the '90s, early '90s, and you remember the group Wham?
Of course.
And so George Michael left Wham and became a gigantic solo artist.
Okay.
What was the name of the other guy that was in Wham?
Oh, I completely don't know. I completely don't know.
Because it was a duo, and they were pretty. Wham was big for a while
I
there.
loved Wham. I
They
loved
were
George Michaels. I
they're
had no idea.
from the UK. George Michael split off, became a solo artist, and he became gigantic. And here's the thing, like it was actually very amicable. The other guy just really didn't want to be a pop star. He wanted to be a race car driver, so that's what he ended up doing. He left and went and be a race car driver. His name was Andrew Ridgely.
Would never, never.
Yeah, most people wouldn't. Everybody knows George Michael because he went on to be huge for a while there. Um, yeah,
Hmm. We stumped each other.
yep.
Two
So
stumps.
you say you haven't been watching anything lately.
No,
You saw some country music this weekend though.
I'm in a dead zone. I need to get back to the movies. But yeah, so I went to a 3 day festival in Ocean City for Country Calling and had a really good time with my kids and my friends. And we just love live music. Marty and I love live music, and I didn't like country music. I mean, I grew up with a being in the rolling around the back of the panel wagon with 8 tracks, and my parents playing Eagles and Rolling
Yeah,
Stones, and we had a dog named Angie from the Rolling Stones. So, but they would mix a little country in there every now and then. But I was like, I wasn't really an old time country person, and then I was. So, I like Jimmy Buffett, but that wasn't really country, sort of country, kind of. And then I started finding the pop country people. And I,
yeah,
I just really love country music now. And we got to see our American Idol judges, Carrie Underwood, Luke Bryan, Luke Combs. It was a good time. There was a lot of people from East in there. There
yeah.
was 55,000 people there.
Uh,
Insane. Beautiful weather. Very fun.
Now, this is like the second or third year they've done this one specifically?
Yeah, they did it last year. I did not go last year. They had like Laney Merriweather, Laney Wilson. I don't know why I said that.
Didn't the tropical storm or something come through last year and kind of ruined it? It was weather related
I don't
last year.
know. I think
Yeah,
that the one before, because there was the Oceans Calling the week before. I think that poor festival gets it every single time they get rain. It did this time. It rained last weekend. But the beach gets some really good people down there for
Yeah,
these concerts. We went to the one in May that was Boardwalk Rocks. That was the rock bands. And then Ocean's Calling was more like Green Day and
yeah.
DJ
Now,
DJ
could
Jazzy Jeff.
could you tell if a lot of them were staying on tour buses or were they staying in the hotels or whatever when they were there? The
Somebody
artists,
else asked me that. I have no clue. I don't know where they would have stuffed those
probably a little
tour
bit of
buses.
both, if I had to guess.
I know when I went to see my buddy Rick Springfield down there at one of the Sunfest, he was way down in a hotel. Those people, those stalkers know where people stay, but
Yeah,
he was way down. But I don't know. I don't know where they stay. They weren't my campground, I don't think.
right.
But good time. They do a really good job of moving people and having enough things, food, bathrooms. It was coming up on the full moon, so the moon was shining down on the ocean. And you're sitting there. I'm sitting there so proud of our beach area because there's a big Ferris wheel over here lit
Yeah,
up. Here's
right.
Luke Combs on the stage. There's the moon shining on the water, and I'm like, man, it's good to be alive tonight.
Now, how do they set the stages up? Are they on both sides of the pier?
So you know the pier. So the main stage is on the left side of the pier, and that
Yeah,
I mean people well, like when you go on Facebook and you see a sea of people, when we're a little red dot in there. But on the
that's
other side of the pier, then they
where the
put like
inlet is. Yeah,
bathrooms, food for the most part, and all the way down the end of the inlet, they'll put two stages next to each other, and then they'll go back and forth with those two stages.
yeah,
But
because
that
that
still accesses beach. One is the smaller one; it's no beach, and but the other two have beach. You use beach
yeah,
too.
the beach that's to the left, if you look on a map, Kathy, the beach that's to the left of the pier is actually the widest sand part of the whole Ocean City.
I
That
didn't realize
section,
that.
yeah, it's got the longest distance between the boardwalk and the water. It's the
So
deepest.
they made two so you have the natural boardwalk, and that's so cool too because you can hop up and go get your candy kitchen and your thrashers. Everything is open just like it's
So it's
summertime.
it's kind of like the vendors are already there. They're built in.
Everything is open. It's got to be great for that beach town. That
Yeah.
because Labor Day used to be the end of it,
Yep.
right? So now every single thing is open, and what it's just cool.
Yeah.
And nobody can you can't be on the boardwalk unless you have the wristband. So it's only concert goers that's
Mm.
up and down there, from like Quiet Storm down.
Yeah.
Where the red bathrooms are, red roof bathrooms.
Yep.
Quiet Storm on
Hmm.
down is where it all is. But so you have your regular boardwalk for people moving, and then they made a boardwalk on the sand out of whatever it was. It's not boards; it was some kind of material.
Yeah.
That so you could walk, and then they put like a little fence up there so people didn't go drown in the ocean. So you were fenced in, but you could see the beach. And then they had security everywhere.
Oh,
People
I'm sure. Yeah.
positioned in high spots on buildings. So it's done right, I feel, if you can tolerate that kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know how I would. I
So
would.
we would stay kind of on the outskirts, Jay. Like we knew when to go in. It wasn't like we weren't in the mad. Well, the last day we were in the mad rush leaving, and I was laughing because they were playing that song Fireball, and everybody was like, they're just dancing on the way
Yeah.
out to Fireball.
Yeah.
But we would go where we could get out. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't trapped. If I needed to go to the bathroom, I could get out. If I needed to go get, because I seem to think I need every food item in the place, I could leave and come back.
See, I would probably do better in something like that where I could kind of really pick where I wanted to stand. Like you were strategic, and still be able to see and hear things, but yeah,
Oh, and you know what else they do? There's the stage,
big
right? And then
screens.
then they put screens out.
Yeah.
So I literally stared at the screen. I
Yeah.
wasn't staring up at the small person on the stage, and I felt like I was looking right at him.
I might have to consider doing that one time, going down there, and whether it's for Ocean's Calling or whatever. Although, you know, I'm not the biggest country fan, but I do like Luke Bryan a little bit. I like Carrie Underwood a little bit. I saw some other artists on the menu on the thing that I wouldn't mind seeing. But Ocean's Calling would probably be a better fit for me. Um, yeah, because that kind of sounds like something where I'd have more control over, not feeling like I was all
You
jammed in
could
with
have
people.
literally sat on a boardwalk if you went on one of those benches. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And watched and heard it too.
Yeah,
If
look, watch the screen if I had to. Yeah,
and yeah, they making it better each time from what I understand. And you could Uber out of there. You could do whatever you want.
yeah. Because I
Um,
could really stay where I always stay because it's down far enough where it would
oh
be outside
yeah,
of it just and walk down. Really,
there
it's
was a
just
couple from another state that was staying in your hotel
yeah.
that on the last night that we were talking to.
It's I wouldn't want to be too much further away than that because that's 17th Street. So from there to the pier, that's a little bit of a walk.
Well,
Now they
now
got
people they take it to bikes too. People rode bikes.
that was just what I was going to ask you.
Yeah,
Maybe I would do that. I would rent a bike for the night, just for the whole night. Just do that.
and they got lockers, and we take a little blanket or whatever, not a little blanket, and then put it down on the um, beach. So if you wanted to sit and rest for a little bit before you got up and stood, you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
But if you're a music lover, it's kind of cool. Like I don't need to be in
Yeah.
the mass, but you could sit on the outside
It's
and
just the vibe of it. Yeah.
and you know how much we all love the beach. So it's like, man,
It's kind of the best of both
cool.
worlds. Yeah.
You got it all. I liked it. It was enjoyable.
So I went for the first time in a couple weeks. Well, know what? No, did I go last 2 weeks ago? I can't remember.
I thought you were definitely on a no movie 2 week streak.
Yeah, so I went this past Friday and saw The Rock's most recent movie called The Smashing Machine. It's actually based on a true story.
Hmm.
He plays an MMA fighter who went through some addiction struggles and some toxic relationship struggles and
Ah,
just the whole 9 yards. Him and Emily Blunt
what's
teamed up
Emma?
again.
Okay, help me because
Emily Blunt was in A Quiet Place. She was in Jungle Cruise with him.
oh
She's in Oppenheimer. She's John Krasinski's wife.
oh yeah.
She was in Devil Wears Prada. That was
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
her
I got
first.
you. I'm
Yeah, yeah, British.
What
She's
do
British.
I what so do I need to see that one?
It's decent. It's more about it's less about the MMA and more about the
Relationship one.
addiction struggle. Yeah, it's more about that than it is. Those two are just really good together, and they've become really good friends in real life.
I need to
Uh,
get to a movie. I got to see what's
I've been watching The Voice. It's been so good, Kathy. I know you haven't watched it yet. You need to go on Peacock and catch up.
I do.
Those four judges are just so good. Of course, it's Reba, Michael Bublé, Niall Horan, and Snoop are the four judges, and man, they just fit so well together. It's there's been some really. There was a 14-year-old girl that sang Alanis Morissette the other night that was so good. Um, yeah, there's just been some really good singers, good stories. Um, they're doing this new thing where they're when the person gets chosen and then it's time for them to pick, almost everybody they're asking their family to come up on stage with them.
Oh,
Whereas before it was kind of every once in a while they would do that. They seem to be
yeah.
doing that most of the time now. So that's kind of different. Like I said, I did watch another episode of Only Murders in the Building. I got to say, we talked about this before we came on. I'm disappointed. Really, it's kind of lost its steam for me. The three main characters don't seem to be on screen together very often at all, and that's kind of what makes the show to me is the interactions of those three. It's just hilarious, and they're not on screen together. So
How many
uh,
of you watched?
three, and
I think
there's no new big star that's shown up.
I think
Uh,
I've done three as well. So I haven't caught back up. So I'm hoping that we get a little more on that one.
I did watch last night, Kathy. I watched a movie based on real life called Swiped, and it's about the woman who basically created Tinder, but she
Mhm.
did it working for somebody else. Then it was all men, and she was the only woman, and the men took the credit. So then she left and created Bumble, and blew up and got crazy, super successful doing Bumble. and just talked about how just man she was treated so well. All the women in the tech world at that maybe still now, but back then were
Hmm.
this was the early 2000s. Were just you know it was a man's club, and women just weren't really
Yeah.
accepted in. And she was like the brains behind everything, but all the men took the credit for it. And she was just mistreated in every way at Tinder, and she left, and
Hmm.
and yeah, it was all about. It was really good. It was very informative, and it's based on a true story. So it's called Swiped, and it's on Hulu.
I'm still I'm still just rewatching Stranger Things, which I am enjoying completely. So
I
I'm in
just
that.
saw where Millie Bobby Brown and Jake Bon Jovi just adopted a
Yeah,
baby.
I saw
So
that.
they were interviewing John Bon Jovi about being a granddad the other day because it's his first grandchild. So, and they live on a big farm
Oh
down
yeah.
in Atlanta. Millie Bobby Brown
Oh,
and Jake Bon.
I
They
didn't know
like they
that.
have all kind of animals. Like they have tons. Like she's a farm girl. Like that's just, she's all
Really?
about that. Yeah,
Huh.
it's just weird how
Well,
she plays this like different
oh
kind
my
of.
gosh, guess what? At the concert, I found an accent. I'm in line for the bathroom and I hear this accent that sounds like our buddy Matt. And I'm like,
Oh, Australian.
is that real? And he's like, what do you, I don't know, whatever he said, how he said
Mate.
it. Why do you all think that it's bloody not real? And I'm like, but is it real? He's like, yeah. He's from Melbourne. Melbourne. I can't say Melbourne,
There's
right? And, but
It sounds like they say Melbourne.
and he said, "Oh my gosh, I was dying laughing because he was saying the same kind of things that Matt says. I was just dying laughing. Like, did they just teach? You guys have a class where they tell you to say all these made up words? It's just so funny. And then, but what I really liked about meeting this guy, besides that he was so irritated I couldn't get in the bathroom, was he said they love Americans. They're like, you are the nicest people ever. This is his first time over here, and I'm thinking we're not. I don't think we're always nice, but he thought Americans are so nice and they love that country music thing. But it came over here just for that. Anyway, I don't know what you said that made. Oh, Millie Bobby Brown
Yeah,
accents. I'm
yeah.
a sucker for an accent.
So yeah, that's about all I've been watching. It's been I have been watching the newest season of Love Is Blind US, but I've caught up, and I think new episodes come out tomorrow evening.
Wait, you caught up as in you went backwards and then you went
Well,
forward.
no, they just released a brand new season last week. They released the first 6 episodes, so I've seen all those six. I think tomorrow night they release three more, and then the week after that they release the final three or four. So I've caught up on the newest season. I'm caught up on the whole series. Period. Both British and USA. Of course, there's a Love Is Blind in every country. So, but I don't want to listen. I don't want captions on the screen and not be able to understand what they're saying. So, but yeah. So that's about it for us this week, guys. We thank you for tuning in to Eastern Shore Talk. We will catch you next time. Take care, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks.